There is nothing that exists outside of you besides you. When you master detachment, you'll have mastery over all of your reality. Detachment is the reason you can't manifest. Now, the correct definition of manifestation, what I came to the conclusion of, is on earth as it is in heaven. A lot of us don't realize that we have been manifesting since the day we were born. Literally, up until this point. I need you to understand that you are gold in the universe. You are the universe. You are a walking energy. And a lot of people have it backwards. They think that we are this body that has a soul, but no, we are a soul that has a body. You guys are desperate for so many things. Some of you guys are desperate for money. You guys are desperate for a partner. You guys are desperate for all of these things outside of you. Anything can be taken away from you just like this. Why is it that you're desperate? Why? And I don't mean that from a place of hate. I'm telling you that you need to start putting yourself on a pedestal, because you are the thing that you are looking for. Anything that you are so desperate for outside of you is what you already hold within you. And if you don't want to be honest with yourself, I'm gonna be honest with you, because you need to start realizing that everything outside of you quite literally is under your control. Everything is working out for you. Life always flows through us. This one's gonna hit a nerve for a lot of you, but you need to learn to detach. If you want to stop living in a certain reality, you need to detach. The only reason you're here is because you were stuck in that loop of not being able to manifest just because you're desperate. There's no shame in admitting that, but that's literally where we have to begin. We have to be honest with ourselves. The truth about desperation and why you're not manifesting is because of where your energy is at when you're giving. You need to understand that life is everywhere. From this house here, this is vibration, this is life right here. I don't care if I sound crazy. I chose the solar plexus because it symbolizes vitality and manifestation. So we need to be very aware of where energy is coming from and how we are giving. You are a king, you're a queen, and you need to understand this and convince yourself. Literally have so much conviction that you are this. We are always so quick to believe the bad stuff, but if it's so simple and easy for us to believe the negatives, why isn't it easy to also switch that? What's the polar opposite of feeling shitty? Feeling great, right? Why is it so difficult for you to feel like that? Your life can end from one second to another. There was once a little girl that did not know what love, actual love, looked like based off of toxicity and certain circumstances, that later when she ended up growing up, she carried that knowing of what love even was into her adulthood, and she confused toxicity and uncertainty for love, when in reality, that was all wrong. You might be thinking, this person doesn't deserve that. Well, no, you are what you attract. It doesn't matter how good of a person you are. It doesn't matter how much you give. It is always from the place that you are giving. And I need you to actually let this sink in. This person believed she had to bend over backwards, sacrifice her boundaries, never say no, and perform just to feel worthy of love. Sometimes we carry these things. We don't realize that we are attracting that which matches us. And this is just one of many examples, because this also applies to money. If you grew up in a home where money was scarce, then most likely you will result doing the same thing that you grew up seeing. The only reason you should be desperate is if your life is at stake. Like you're hanging off a cliff or something, or your house is on fire. Those are all very valid reasons, right? I am talking about being so desperate to the point where you don't recognize your own value and you end up attracting, without realizing, experiences that are very unpleasant. You think you're doing everything right, but you don't even realize that you are stuck in a loop of fear and mistrust. I call this the fear and mistrust loop for obvious reasons. I love me some Billy. Your energy can be directed only where you decide to place it. Literally, all you have to do is decide that you don't want this anymore. It's not complicated, and everything that you do has to do with most of your focus. A lot of it has to do with childhood traumas, with where you're placing your energy. These things that you call dreams, they're not even far ahead of you. Just the fact that you put them on a pedestal, you think that they're very hard to gain, but you've always had access to them in here. This feels very hard out of reach because you are fearful and you are mistrustful also. Each and every single one of you is energy, and you need to understand that what is for you is something that you're not gonna miss, ever. You're not gonna miss anything. I may be talking about certain outcomes that we are attached to, but sometimes our soul just planned it for us already. We don't have control of when we're gonna die. Just trust and believe that when you are desperate, you are operating from lack and distrust. This person is thinking of fear, lack, and not being worthy. But are you those things? You're not even your thoughts, okay? You may have thoughts, but your brains are neurotransmitters. They receive only. Brains are only receivers, and you can only receive that of what you are in vibration with. I'm gonna put the chart up here, that way you guys know, but this person is all the way at the bottom. Based off of what level you are at in this chart, that is exactly the type of thoughts that you will attract, the ones that you will receive. You guys also need to understand that attachment is very low frequency. It just means that you are holding on to something in your body that you haven't let go of. Could have been from childhood, it could have been from last week. You need to release it, and I can make a whole separate video on this. Just let me know. So while you may consciously think you're detached, or you may think you don't care or whatever, detachment isn't about not caring. It's about just allowing freedom. Detachment is truly just letting go and just allowing peace over anything, because from our understanding, we just have one life. And why waste it being desperate? Take this from somebody that lived so many years in this state of vibration. You need to understand this and replay it until it makes sense to you. Another thing that we are not taught nowadays in society, we are taught the opposite of this, but try guessing what it is you need to do to detach. To master reality is to master yourself. Literally, I mean this as an exaggeration. You need to relax. This world is very hectic. Do this, do that. Clock in at 5, only 30-minute break. Sometimes you just need to let things be. Literally, just relax and let things be. And most importantly, you need to let yourself be. Everybody thinks that manifestation is about bending reality, forcing shit to change with your mind. It's not about that. True manifestation is an internal shift that happens. It is something that happens in here. When you change the way you look at life, life will change the way it looks at you. Manifestation's not a chase. It's something that you align with. You have to align with whatever it is you want. From somebody that does not want a life of misery, of feeling unworthy, of feeling like you're constantly broke, you need to simply align with the vibration of somebody that is not broke. Just because it doesn't seem like anything's changing, you need to understand that everything is a cause. The cause is in here, the effect is out here. Your life is literally all because everything that has been in here since before. And really ask yourself, if you were a person that has what they wanted, would you be anxious? Exactly where you want to be is actually where you're supposed to start. You would just be calm and relaxed. You would feel safe. You don't need to act like you don't care. You just need to be safe enough and feel safe enough within yourself until it eventually does show up in this reality. The law of detachment doesn't show us that we need to give up. It just tells us to release. And you know what? This is a good example. If you chase a butterfly, what is it gonna do? It's gonna run from you. Have you ever noticed the things that I scratch myself? The things that you least want are always the most available? This is something you need to practice. You need to practice awareness. When you feel desperate, you need to pause and ask yourself, where is this story coming from? Why are you even believing this story? Because the truth is that we're not really being desperate for the circumstances. Most of us suffer more in our imagination than we do in our reality. And that's the hard truth of it. A lot of us are not willing to accept that. And ask yourself, is this story that I'm believing so much in alignment with what I want in my desired reality? Does that story align? And if not, you need to get rid of the emotions that live in the now in order to step into that reality that you really do want. But please Please understand this. We all have a story that we have replaying in the back of our heads like little melody songs. Understand that not all memories are 100% accurate, and there's actually a study on this, and I will link it down below if I can find it. But I was reading an article on this, and what you focus on does become your reality. And a lot of people still don't know. I knew a girl that was very attractive. She was fit, she had everything going for her, she was beautiful, everything that a guy could ask for, right? I don't know, but deep down she was operating from fear, and fear of not being chosen, fear of always thinking like people were gonna abandon her. And because of that energy, she kept attracting situations that reflected back to her beliefs. Everything in your life is a mirror of the pleasant experiences, a mirror of the unpleasant ones. It is always a mirror, and awareness is where you're going to determine where these things are coming from and why it is that you're not manifesting. When you practice awareness, you start to see that your outer reality was never the problem. It was always an unhealed part of you within that was always reflecting back to you what you already were. Let me know a random story you know about this. I would like to know. When you catch yourself reacting and starting to be desperate, you need to ground yourself and come to the conclusion that you are safe. Nothing is happening to you. You need to just take a deep breath and then let it out. Just pause and ask, does this align with the reality that I want to live in? Pause and ask yourself, because to know yourself is to know everything, and to know everything is to know yourself. You should never doubt yourself, because there's nobody else that knows you in the world like you do. Awareness is your superpower, and the moment you stop identifying with that old story that you keep telling yourself is the very moment that everything changes for you. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments, and it was my pleasure serving you.